Alright. Before I start anything here, guys, let me see if my frame still dropped here. Let me pause the music. It should be alright. Can someone confirm there's no frames dropped? Should be solid.
On your video or on the stream? Your video is
seems
fine.
good now. So I think what it was just that one scene, the starting up scene, was kind of bugged or something. So it wasn't even anything else. But alrighty, guys. First of all, welcome everyone. This one is a special episode for obvious reasons. We've got 2 CCP devs on. Usually we talk to FCs and like talk about all kinds of things when it comes to FC, and you know, we talk about all kinds of things, also non-FC stuff. But in this case, I thought it's interesting to get a little bit more insight to like CCP and how things work in there. How you know, maybe the last, I would say, half a year were kind of interesting, or like all that new content developed, and I think Aurora, you have been at CCP for how long now? Maybe 6 months, right?
I think I've just hit 7.
Ah.
6 or 7 months. I started in March.
Oh, and your thingy is not on. 1 sec. That was my fault. So I mean, kind of close. I was guessing almost right. So one thing I want to talk to you guys about, I think Aurora, you might have some good insights, is the whole ban policy update. Obviously, I'm a little bit invested in that, like, you know, for like most people know probably for what reason. But I think maybe Deadlift is more the guy to talk to when it comes to like the daily CCP office stuff, like how things actually work over there. But yeah, I mean, first of all, guys, thanks a lot for coming on and doing this, and especially the effort in like lately. Like I would say the last year, CCP has really put an effort to connect with the community, right? And then easy to reach you guys, and just set this up spontaneously. What we talked yesterday, I think, 2 days ago maybe. And then we set this up.
2 days ago, somebody told me, was like, "Hey, do you want to do FC chat with Pando?" And it's like, "Let me check my schedule." Sure.
Yep, super nice, guys. Really appreciate it.
I mean, it's nice and chill. So there's, I mean, obviously, as long as we're here under CCP names, there is an undertone of like, this is still kind of work related. But as long as we don't say anything absolutely ridiculous, we're given a certain amount of freedom. So it's nice to exercise it. And
you it's work related, and I think people need to understand that too, right? The second like you work for the company, it always is a little bit work related. You can't get around that. And then
the lines get blurry around stuff like this, but it's still work for us in some degree. But at the same time, like, this is the sort of thing I would do as a player anyway, because I love chatting about this stuff. So
I just love talking shit, and I mean, the only thing. The only reason I say it's sort of work related to me is because I need to put a filter on myself. That's basically it. Like, I don't really consider this something I'm putting an effort towards. I'm just out here having a little fun talking to people. I just need to
slightly less shit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say it like that. You know?
Yeah, let's hope I don't have to go back and then censor the video because you talk too much. You gave it all away. Like, how many beers do you need to like spill some really good secrets?
I mean, I'm on my 3rd. Talk to me when I'm on my 10th. Like, that's when I'm like,
you got it.
I've got a buzz going, so like I'll be like, hey, it's fine, you know, we'll work it out tomorrow.
That's the magic number 10.
So you wouldn't believe this next expansion that's coming up.
Because frankly, I didn't believe it either, but it's happening.
And yet here we are.
Now that you say next expansion, right? So the ore distribution stuff is like probably the most talked about right now. I would say, I mean, we can talk about what a QA analyst exactly does in a minute, but I would say you guys haven't been like too involved in the whole order redistribution thing and so on, right? So for those who have questions, put them all in chat, but just be aware, like, it's those two are not the guys to talk to when it comes to the ore redistribution stuff, really, right? So
I mean, work is essentially segmented. Each team has its own thing. We have, I guess, like segments of teams within the company. So like I am in the content segment with 2 other teams. I might have a vague idea of what the other 2 teams are doing, but largely I am focused on what we do, my team. Everything else, especially things from other segments, I get told about it probably about the same time that like the players might get told about it, unless I actively go out of my way to go and look for it.
Yeah, I'm community team, which is I'm on the community team, of course. We're kind of involved in everything, but it's always at the end of the pipeline. So as stuff comes to us, usually at the end of the pipeline, we kind of have our hands everywhere. We're like super involved in all sorts of things. But as far as like specific development, design ideas, all of that sort of stuff, that's usually not where we're quite as involved, unless it comes to like connecting people to the CSM. What are you working on? What can we get the CSM involved in for you? That sort of thing. So a lot of it is they'll have been working on something and maybe it didn't fully cross my radar. And then eventually it's like, oh, hey, we have this dev blog that we need to prep for and we need to get this out. And we start reading the dev blog and we're like, oh boy, people are going to be very torn over this. Like the most recent one.
I can imagine. And so on the community team, that's mostly it's you, Convict. Who else is on the community team actually?
CCP Dopamine. And
Dopamine,
CCP,
yes.
Yep, and CCP Alpha is like partially on the community team for the Russian community.
Yeah, so you guys are like the community team. And like leading up to this, usually like I had CCP Rise on and he's in Team Talos, right? Then Deadlift put in like Team Ra as the name for the team. And the community team doesn't even have a name.
No, we don't have a cool name. And it's something that's bothered me since I joined because when I started, I'm like, all right, so every team has a cool name. What's our cool name? And Dopamine's just like, we don't really have one. We're just the community team. Like, really? No
what
cool
would
name?
make it?
The community has to do it, I guess.
But as a community team, it's like, it would have to be left up to the community, right? That seems only appropriate.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a dangerous.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, so I think that, what would you call the CCP community team?
Hey,
I promise I'll adopt it, but I would love to hear your ideas.
You should ask for like a CCP socket closed. Or like GM socket closed that was, right? Now he is CCP. I forgot.
Spider.
CCP Spider. So,
Yeah, he was original GM Spider, but then he got shanghaied by the GM Week, like rename a GM thing, and they renamed him to CCP Socket Closed because it was a big issue at the time. And as best I can tell, he was not happy with that change, but he went with it. But eventually he's taken a new position and he's taken back Spider, but with the CCP title.
I mean, honestly, I don't know if it's true how much he didn't like it, since the man literally made a bet that he'll shave his head on stream if something happened, and then he shaved his head on stream. So I feel like changing his CCP name is probably a significantly more minor thing there.
He's just all in on bets, I guess.
And I think I actually remember him embracing it. So like I think he dealt with it quite well. It worked out. So if you guys are scared, the community team, totally fine. But it's gonna be all right. I'm sure the community is gonna pick a name that's really good. Totally.
They'll take care of you. Don't worry.
Yeah, take care of us.
In many meanings of that phrase. But also, it's also untrue that every team is a cool name. There are some teams that have a really lame name. That
Oh,
I don't
really?
want to. I don't want to name them right now because
can't-
I'll
You
be
can't
like a
just
big
say
caller.
that and not tell us what they are.
Okay, there's a team called Team Effort.
Team effort. Oh my god, that's
Yeah,
cheesy.
exactly. Yeah, that was my main reaction. I was like, really though? Like you could have named yourself anything. My team actually, because due to some internal reorganizing, the audio and graphics teams basically got their own different team names. So Team Audio and Graphics wasn't taken, and then my team were like, we should be Team Audio and Graphics because I mean the stuff we do has audio and graphics, right? And
Low
we
effort.
were this close to doing it just to mess with people, but we settled on Ra instead.
But please
I think,
tell me. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think like team effort is like what Panda likes to say about people who always talk about how smart they are. Like the more you talk about how smart you are, the less smart people usually are who talk about it. So the more you talk about how much effort you put into your team effort, the less effort you probably put in.
You know what?
Oh, that's just mean.
I just hope that team effort isn't too much of the creative side of things.
On the,
You know?
creative, the art
That
team.
would be kind of sad. Is it the art team? Please tell me it's not the art team.
No.
Alright.
Our team was called
sick.
like Team. Like, there was a bunch of stuff, but like when they split, they had like Team Cruise, like Tom Cruise. Weirdly, they had Tom Cruise's face on their logo. It was unsettling. And then we had Team Enya, which I believe is a singer, and they actually had the music from said singer just playing in their team area. It's also a bit weird because it's always on. Like there's that type of things. Like everyone essentially wants to joke around, and the art team usually does better joking around than we do because they have their own separate bit.
And you know
And
what?
yeah, it slaps.
And
I mean,
Enya is amazing, to the person in chat who said that. I still have Enya on my Spotify playlist. It pops up every now and then.
Quintessential 90s chill music.
Exactly.
but when it comes to teams, right? Every now and then there's a patch, people don't like it, and then some certain teams catch a little bit more shit or whatever from the community. You know, you have to have a thick skin, right? you guys surely know that.
it's a must. Like,
But when it comes, I just wanted to say, the art team. I've never seen anyone complain about the art team. Like any,
They get some complaints, but they're always like really goofy. Like the engine on the ship is upside down, that sort of thing. And then you'll see it in the patch notes because they always like take that feedback very seriously. They're like, oh man, the engine on the ship is upside down, and then you'll see it
annoyingly good.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
But at the
And they
same
don't catch
time,
very much flack.
or is it maybe from the nature, like they almost can't lose, but they're just adding to it? Maybe it's just the easier job. I don't know. Maybe it's just they. Like, whatever they do, it's always a positive because like it's not like they remove anything from the game or so, right? They don't change the gameplay for someone, right? They just add to it.
Yeah, they've got it easy in that case because they never have to do anything controversial. But I know they're busy at the very least because I personally have a whole bunch of skin requests in with them. It's like, I need you to make skins for all of these different things. And they're like, we can't do all this at once. We only have 2 weeks. It's kind of like, well, tell me what you can do. We'll figure it out.
Well,
They're
alliance
like
skins when?
put in a request for 2 months from now.
They were all like 4 months from now, but it's a super busy time of the year for the art team. So props to those guys.
And and we talked about the whole thing being a little bit of a work-related thing, but at the same time, you both have been players before you went to CCP. Is that correct?
Yep.
And like, I'm a big fan of that. That like CCP goes and like every couple years they take someone in from the community. Like, I think the community team is almost beside Dopamine, probably, right? I think Dopamine didn't play Eve before, but Aurora, I know you from your time in Brave, and you were always like tweeting stuff for newbies and trying to help them out and all that stuff. And Convict, he actually used to be an Init. And you know, Deadlift, you played before. Like, what have you been doing like before you were Dev?
Largely, I just joined a bunch of like low sec as my space, but I did for a while. Like my corp was part of Circle of Two back when they were in decline. But like that was probably my only time in Null. Mostly, I was just in small parts of low sec doing like small scale stuff. That's where I find is the most fun for me.
And you say Circle of Two, that kind of leads to the whole ban thing, right? I mean, what are the chances? I think GigX doesn't have big chances to get the redemption thing.
I mean, as far as I'm aware, like essentially bodily, like threats of bodily harm are significantly more seriously taken than anything else. So, although I do not know the specifics of our policies on it, I would personally say it's probably doubtful.
Yeah, I don't think anyone expects that.
They're pretty thorough when they look over these things, and I've chatted with the GMs about some of them, particularly the high-profile ones that are being looked at. I can't speak for GigX specifically because I don't know what's happening with that, but they go back through all of their logs. They try to make sure that the person who's reviewing it doesn't already have an opinion, especially if it's somebody who's well-known, like GigX was. And they're pretty thorough, and from what I can tell, they're really fair. So they're giving people a really good shot. If it looks like it was, something reasonable that we can let them back in for, they are certainly trying to do it. And then there's cases where it's like, after review, we just can't. Sorry.
Vetizo and Headliner both go.
Stunt too.
Said it again. What did you say?
They mentioned stunt too.
Yeah, stunt floors, I think. So I think he applied for the redemption thing and first got denied. And then later on it got changed back to like, oh, actually we looked into this. And he is actually unbanned right now, isn't he?
Yeah, I think it was them just kind of getting used to the start of the program there. So he was one of the first that applied. And most people know stunt floors at this point. At least if you're active on Reddit, you're probably familiar with stunt floors. Originally it was shut down, and then I think they were kind of like trying to find, legs for the program, make sure that they're, giving everybody a proper review, got a second look, and he got through. So
yeah. So for those who don't know, like the stunt floors thing, I don't know like 100% what happened. I wasn't even paying attention at the time to that kind of stuff. But basically what he did, he made a picture, or he faked a like a quote on, I think it was Slack at the time, from a CCP dev, then linked it to someone, who then linked it to someone, who then put it out there for everyone to see, for it to then look like he was impersonating a CCP dev, and then he got banned for that. So, he's kind of, it wasn't, I mean, I don't want to say it wasn't his fault. He kind of did the whole thing, but at the same time, like a lifetime ban was just like a little bit too much, I felt like, too. And
there might have been some other factors going on there that I'm not fully aware of, but I mean, that's about what I've heard as well, but I'm not super involved in that case, so I can't fully comment on it. And even if I did know all the details, I probably wouldn't be anyway. So
yeah, I can imagine. Like, but I just wanted to give people a little bit more like insight on it, because that's from what I heard. And a lot of times in those ban cases, nobody knows the entire truth, right? Nobody does. Like, it's always like behind closed doors, and there might already be, in GigX case, for example, there are other cases, not just that one case people all know about. There have been other cases too. So like it adds up, and then there's that final thing, and then that's it. And it's always easy to judge just from someone's Reddit post and then say, okay, like CCP should be doing this or CCP should be doing that. It is tricky. It's a tricky subject, and it has to be taken seriously. And I'm glad it looks like that's finally the case, right? So
yeah, they're trying to give people their fair shake, and I think that's a pretty honorable thing to do.
Yeah, and obviously, like at the time that whole incident with me and Brisk and Darkshines happened, that became a little bit more of my, I got a little bit more invested in that stuff, right? So luckily, I have the feeling there's still some people out there that really care, right? So it's good to see changes like that are actually possible. So there's constant work to be done. Like I think work will never end, like with stuff like this. So
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people at CCP, even though you might not interact with them all that often, but a lot of the people who work there really truly understand how important the game is to a lot of our players. So like your Eve identity, especially to the people who've committed years to this game, is just like a huge part of your life at that point. And so to have that ripped away just very suddenly over something can be really harsh. And so you need to make sure that if we do have to administer that sort of punishment, it needs to be with, reasonable judgment. And judgment's always a tricky thing. Like you'll never have everyone agree on exactly how to judge a case. It's just kind of the way human interaction works. But I mean, you just try your best, try to do it with as level a head as you can, and give everybody a fair chance.
Yep. Sounds very good. But so like Deadlift isn't involved with that, but like people probably wonder, like, what does a QA analyst do all day? Like, what do you do when you jump into the walk into the office?
Well, first things first, I greet everyone in my customary Scottish way. Probably I say a swear word to make sure they know it's me. Essentially, QA largely revolves around like a big part of it is like theory crafting. Like you get given a task. It just says this task involves the player or X being able to do something. You then have to think through what things that something that's been added could affect, how we can interact with them, and making sure that through all interactions, it does what it's supposed to do without breaking anything. And the idea is like, I'm not trying to just check that, oh, it's going fine. No, I'm actively trying to make sure it breaks something. And the whole, it's kind of like a mentality thing, I guess. Like, it's not just checking that things are fine. Like, every single time you're doing QA work, your point is to find an issue, right? It's sort of like a dog with a bone type of thing. Like, you're meant to go after, like, okay, what else could possibly break? And if I find something that breaks, I need to report it. There's a lot of documentation that is involved in QA, so communication skills are quite important. But being a pedantic asshole is also quite important. So it's mostly just like try to break things. If they break, report it. Make sure it gets followed through to the designer or engineer that's on it. Make sure if it's not something that your team could directly actually influence, that it gets pushed through to the other teams that are in charge of it. Sometimes that means it takes longer than you'd want, or maybe they aren't able to fix it in time. It's a bit annoying, but that's just how life is because everyone else has their own workload. And then, except for that, whenever I don't have anything to directly work on, QA will often be looking at bug reports. Unfortunately, we don't have enough QA to really parse through every single bug report possible. So we try to focus on the things that are more critical, like things that affect your game significantly more than, if somebody tells me like, on the eve of the third moon, I went to this mission, and under these circumstances, his name was incorrect. And I'm like, I'm gonna pass that. Like that doesn't really change your game all that much, and that would also take me a long time to actually reproduce it. So I go to first things first is always just like things that came in recently, complaints about things that my team does, things that are currently very common in the game, like meta, sort of like if there's any events, if there's any recent changes, etc. And after that is just anything, just general issues and how seriously they affect the player. And then I try to first confirm that it happens. If it does happen, I push it through to either the engineer, the designer, or whatever team's in charge of it to be handled whenever they have the time, because we don't have the time to immediately tackle issues, unfortunately. Everyone always has a full workload. And basically just try to keep on top of things. QA is largely reactionary. Like you get given something, you complete it. But we also get to be fair, and I understand also now that I'm speaking, my actual like timeline of events is entirely convoluted. But if we go back slightly, I also get to sit in on some designer meetings and try to actually highlight issues with any potential designs that they might have before they get to the implementation stage. Stuff like that, basically. The entire process is just me trying to be at every part of the process of the creation of a feature and try to either highlight potential issues before they can occur or find them once they have occurred to make sure that they're fixed before they're released.
Did you ever find like an issue that you're like that you were like super proud of? Like, fuck yeah, I found this one.
Probably back when I worked for Pull to Win, which are our contracted testers back in Glasgow, which is where I kind of came into CCP from. There were a bunch where essentially if you dig around in like a place where 2, 3, maybe 4 different features actually combine, there'll usually be some sort of really weird interaction with it. Usually that interaction is also not something that a player would ever, achieve. So it's unlikely a player would actually find it. But from the more recent ones, I'd probably say it's like actually, the new storms that came out recently, the weather effects, when under certain circumstances, they would for some reason decide that systems that are one jump out were not actually one jump out, but were further. And also, the more fun one was under certain circumstances, rather than just move to one system, it would like split into 2 different systems, into 2 different storms. That was a really fun one, especially because some of their effects actually overlap. So that was when I found that one. I'm like, this is like the juicy one, because if it actually went out, the salt would have been amazing.
That was hilarious.
Yeah.
Just imagine multiplying storms like CCP. What the hell? There's 18 of them today.
Yeah, they haven't moved all that much yet, right? So over time they will spread out a little bit more. So maybe there's more to come, right? Maybe you didn't spot everything. So guys, if you find some issues, you know who to point your fingers at, right?
Well, I mean, y'all gotta understand, we're only human, right? You can't catch everything, right?
Everyone blame Deadlift.
You can't, like, certain things, especially when like bug reports come in and you reproduce it and you're like, okay, so it's still legit. Like, I did miss it, but then you look at it and you're like, the chances of me being able to reproduce it are so low that it's honestly not that feasible for me. Like, I would have had to spend like several hours trying to figure out just a single tiny issue. And that's, like, again, that kind of goes into time management. So catching everything is not feasible, but we try. I can't say we don't try. We do try.
No, what else can you do, right?
Do our best.
Yeah. So someone in my corp actually pointed out, so you guys moved into a new office, and I think, Aurora, you have not seen the old office actually, or did you?
I did. I worked at the old office for a whole 4 days before we went quarantine.
So someone pointed out the new office that was built looks way smaller. Like, is that right? Is it way smaller? Is it maybe more compact, more efficient or so? Or is it actually?
I mean, it's a lot wider, but it's no longer 3 stories.
Yeah.
So we have a whole floor of a very large building. It's like a giant O-ring, like it's a loop. So it actually takes quite a while to get from like one end to the other, just having to walk around the loop because there's a big courtyard in the center. It feels pretty spacious. I wouldn't say, by square footage, it might be slightly larger than the old office.
I think it's probably actually just a little bit smaller, all in all, just because the old office was sort of like just for us, whereas this is more like an actual like office building type thing. So the certain like amenities are actually like in the staircase, so outside the office or something like that. And I guess it could also feel a bit smaller simply because, it's an office with a very like standard design, so everything kind of looks the same, which would also not really help with distance perception. So I'd say it's maybe a bit smaller than the old one, but not by much.
It does help that all of the walls are made out of glass, so it looks really big when you're kind of like looking through the office spaces because there's nothing like blocking your view, making it feel small. So that probably like messes with my perception of the space a little bit.
Do you guys miss anything about the old office?
Oh, the little gym we had, it was so good.
The gym of
Shocking.
I still have cardboard boxes behind my desk in the new office because we don't have shelves, but we brought everything over from our shelves that we had behind the previous desk. So now I just have like boxes of Nerf guns and random Eve paraphernalia, kind of chilling in cardboard boxes that HR keeps telling us to get rid of, but I don't have a place to move to. So I'll figure that out one day.
So it's like still a process ongoing, like the moving in. It's not completely done yet. All right.
No, it's not just the move.
Tomorrow.
The building is still under construction.
Oh, the building is not done yet.
Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, it drives us kind of crazy because there are some days where I've seen people like stand up like, I can't take this anymore, I'm going to work from home, because they're drilling right below us and it's just incredibly loud. And then every now and then it feels like everybody will go, whoa, and somebody will go, was that an earthquake? It's like, oh no, that earth mover just hit the building. It's truly a construction zone. Like it's hard hat area down below us. So the fact that we can work in there at all is actually pretty impressive.
Honestly, the worst part is the fire alarm test.
Oh, the fire alarms go off almost every day. And everybody using video calls and stuff, it shuts down videos for or video meetings for 5 minutes because we're all just like, can't hear anything, waiting for the fire alarm to go off.
Oh my God. But aren't most people actually working from home at the moment anyway?
Most of us are right now, yeah.
Yeah, it's been kind of back and forth. So they keep adjusting things as the situation changes. So at the moment, I'm home. Hopefully we'll be in the office in the next couple of weeks or so. We'll see.
I hate working from home, so I hope so too.
Oh, I love being able to work from home. Like, we were told to telework once all of this stuff happened, but I'm really the only one in my office that can successfully telework without having to talk to other people. So I was at home for 2 months, just chilling and playing Eve during meetings and stuff. And everyone else was complaining because they were still at work.
It's a love-hate relationship for me. Like, I love being able to roll out of bed and be at work within about 10 seconds. But at the same time, I hate how easy it is for me to pull stuff out of the refrigerator. So
that's fair.
I hate it specifically for that reason because I sleep right there, I work right here. My kitchen is just a wall over. My bathroom is 2 walls over. That's all the movement I get to do, and I really don't like that.
Yeah, that was something too. You tweeted Deadlift about the stretches for your hip flexors and stuff, or when you're sitting at a desk too long. And now that when I was teleworking, I felt that too, because I wasn't walking down the hallway to go to the bathroom and stuff like that. I'm just walking 5 feet away, so I was moving considerably less, and my body definitely felt it.
Yeah, the hip flexor is something that probably gets hit the hardest from any sort of sedentary lifestyle. And then eventually you're like, oh, why is my back hurt? And it's not technically your back, it's your hip flexor that's pulling your back tighter.
Yeah, same with your knees and stuff too. A lot of people have knee pain. It's just because they have tight quads and they don't even realize it.
Because your body's just well, I mean, we don't move, so we don't need to move. So just shorten that muscle. Fuck it, whatever. We don't need to do anything with it.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, Convict?
Convict says that we're soft.
Yeah. You guys are soft. You guys are too soft.
Bucket finally comes into its own. I've been actively trying to fight against it. I've been injuring myself regularly on this skateboard over here. So, yeah, I'm still got a few wounds that are healing from that.
Oh, you just wait till the ice starts, then you are in for a world of hurt.
I probably won't be able to use it. I'm kind of hoping that they won't kick me out of the parking garage if I try to skate in there, but I have a feeling that's going to be unwelcome.
When you guys moved in, did you guys at least get to choose the spot where your desk is going to be? Did you guys move into the walk around the empty thing and then say, okay, I want this, I want this spot, I want this one, or did it all get assigned?
No, it was assigned. Yeah, because they wanted team areas near each other and then related teams that work together near each other. All that office planning.
So it's not it's not like a school class getting a new
Nah.
room, and then the cool kids all get like in the back.
Just come in one day, someone's sitting on your desk, you're like, dude, that's my spot. What the fuck?
It doesn't have your name on it.
I'm like, hold on, let me get my chisel. It does now. But no,
So
it's teams.
Who would you choose to share an office with if you could choose one of the other CCP members?
This feels like an entrapment of some sort.
And if you say
like this is
CCP
leading
convict, you're wrong.
I mean, honestly, I'd have to go with CCP Wonderboy. He's also a gym person, so we could talk gym a lot. That'd be good.
I feel like the trick answer is to answer CCP Hilmar because he's not always in the office, and so you get that nice executive office area to yourself most of the time.
Smart choice. You get the one with the jacuzzi and stuff, right?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Really.
I like how Delana's saying CCP Burger is the chillest. Bro, you have not worked with CCP Burger. Like, his personality on stage is just his personality. Like, that's just him.
Oh yeah, 100%. I've worked with him a bit now. He is a whirlwind of a person, and
he's a whirlwind of emotions always. Yeah, he's super fun. But imagine if you had to just do some menial random tasks for work, and it's just being burger near you.
Just 1,000%.
Yeah, just 1,000% always.
What was CCP Burger's title again? He was not the community, like part of the community team.
He's the creative director, I believe.
Oh,
yeah, right. He's the creative director. So he's the one who's. It's almost like a VP role. He guides all of the dev teams towards like a unified vision. He's kind of the creative director role. So he picks like he's the one who creates like where do I see the story of the game going and like how do things fit together. That's him.
All right.
Manic wants to know who the most mellow CCPer is.
Mellow? Oh, we have lots of those.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. That's really hard to pick.
Those are the people I don't hang out with because they're too mellow.
I mean, it might be somebody on like the art team, maybe.
Yeah, the art team has a lot of super chill folks. Anyone who stands out as super mellow?
I mean, honestly.
Do you know what? CCP Fozzie, he is such a nice dude. Like,
he is super mellow. That's a good choice. So I'll go with Fozzie as well.
He is like almost annoyingly nice.
Well, he is Canadian after all.
I know exactly what you mean by that too.
I wouldn't say annoyingly, but he is very nice.
Yeah, he's like. It's hilarious because basically, so CCP Fozzie is on my team, and my team is probably most certainly the loudest team in the office, and he's the no, not only because of me, right? It's like me, Signal, Trash Panda are like right next to each other, and then we've got Cerberus, who's one of the newer dudes nearby, and we've got Betic right next to me as well. And like none of us are particularly quiet people, and myself and Signal are, let's call it, of a coarse disposition. And then we have CCP Fozzie, who just smoothens all of our bullshit down so that people don't get offended at anything we say.
He makes it like he takes the 10 out of 10 loudness and makes it like a 9.5 out of 10, yeah?
Sounds basically like a well-constructed team to me.
Yep. I mean, honestly, I think if the office was more full right now, we'd be getting told to shut the fuck up significantly more often.
You know what? Like, what I also wondered about is with the war and stuff like this. I'm sure you guys follow this, obviously in the office though, too, right?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, on the community team, we actually get asked to do like regular updates on the war. There's a whole bunch of people interested, and so every week we'll have like an update on like what's happened in the war thus far, and then we have several Slack channels where war discussion happens. It's like, so we just had a big battle here. We're sharing battle reports in this channel. We're having a discussion about fleet compositions that we saw in the fights and stuff. It's fantastic. Like there's a ton of interest. So it's really fun.
Oh, right. I had no idea like it goes that far that like there's even like a war update kind of thing. Like who's doing those war updates? Is that like, are you doing those?
It's usually me and Convict. So community team tends to do that sort of community reporting. We'll grab like the AARs off of Reddit. We'll go hunt down for some videos of the conflict. We'll try to like give as much detail as we can to everyone who's interested, which is a whole bunch of people in the office. And so we get asked to present that, and we present it, to, I don't know, a whole bunch of people in a video call in the morning or whatever. It's like, this is what's happening. We're seeing forces moving in from here. There's a new cube start over here. They're formed up to defend this.
Better organized than some groups
in
the war.
Nothing happened. However, in 49 tech, 46,
49-U.
49-U, 9U. There's the double nines that are messing with me. In 49U-U, like we had a Fortizar timer and an iHub timer at the same time. Goons were thinking that they were going to form the defense. Like we just go into all of that. And so we kind of give a big breakdown, and I think it's appreciated. I'd love to do it like almost more publicly, but at the same time, it's kind of an awkward thing because we don't want to step on the toes of the people who are doing that in the community already.
Yeah.
So we kind of just let that unfold at the moment.
Yeah, that's the problem. If you would do that, but if you would do that, someone would think you're biased towards one group or the other, right? It's like, it's a tricky spot. I can totally see that.
We should do it from both sides, right? We need to have two biased people, biased for different sides, just reporting. Just like real news, right?
Yeah.
We try to keep it pretty unbiased. It's just like in terms of like what happened, who was where, what was destroyed, kind of factual. But at the same time, like it'll also come along with like temperatures of the morale on each side, trying to like figure out like, how each side is feeling about the conflict of the war, how the neutrals are feeling about the war ongoing, like what is the interest level in the community. So we kind of measure all of that stuff and try to communicate it as best we can.
How do you gauge that? What do you use to gauge the interest level?
I mean, that's kind of, it's not a science. It's basically the way that you would probably do it any other way, which is basically go onto the various channels for those people. So like I'm in Brave still. I'm in all of the Legacy Coalition channels. So it's really easy for me to take the temperature of Legacy Coalition because I'm just listening to discussions all day. For Goonswarm and stuff, like a lot of it's, how motivated is their propaganda department is like a reasonable like measure of, how involved are these people in the war. You can go onto Reddit and you can just see the comments for each side. So like, how many people are like arguing? Are they passionate about, oh no, it was technically a win for Goons because they defended the Fortizar, even though they lost 16 supers or whatever. If they're spinning it that hard, that means that they're really like involved. That's fantastic. It's just
I can hear some bias.
But she's not biased though.
Nope.
But I wasn't there at that fight. Actually, I actually told Asher that I'm gonna be around because we had some special shit planned. But I just couldn't make it. It was 3 o'clock my time. Then you form up for another hour, and then the timer by the time the fight actually kicks off might be 2 hours later, and then it's 6 o'clock. So I was like, Asher, sorry, like I'm going to bed. I can't do this, right? And so I missed that fight, sadly.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was super late here too, so I missed it as well. Not that I'm a big part of those fights. I'm usually just an interceptor. Like maybe I'll do something.
But perhaps Mr. Deadlift got some bug reports coming in from that one because the PDS apparently didn't work, which was a big part of the plan for the disengaging, like for supers, right, to save a few.
I can't say I've seen those particular ones, but mostly recently I've been pretty busy, so I haven't had time to really delve into the bug report section. But if there was a significant outcry about it, then someone's definitely already looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't read Asher's bad report, but I'm pretty sure he mentioned that part, right? But yeah, it's
one thing sad. For anyone who's watching, if you're ever going to report a bug report, do it as soon as it happened and do it from in-game, because that way you're attaching the logs of your game to the bug report, and then we can read through what happened. If you just, report something that happened that's just like, like a 1 in a million chance through the website, or you restarted your client, which is even worse because then there's some logs and we look at them, we're like, There's nothing here. Like, we can't. We have your word. We'll try to reproduce it the way you said it happened, but without the logs, you give us significantly less information. So if you find a bug, please, if you believe it's to be a bug, just hit report.
It's
Report,
the
explain what's happening.
F12 key in.
Yeah, and honestly, not that big of a deal if it wasn't actually a bug. If maybe it was just some sort of cached issue, no biggie. We just look through it. If it's a real bug and you attach it with logs, we have significantly more to go on. Please.
Yeah, Shogol is actually one of the bug hunting guys. I've talked to him before about, I forgot what bug it was. There was some, like a certain bug we tried to figure out. So sometimes...
Stoggle.
Go
on.
No, you go. What was it?
I was just going to tell him I still have a clone in Amamake.
And?
Continue. I'm a
That
low
is all.
sucker.
But yeah, with all the war stuff and so on, like, going on, do you think maybe the whole war like distracts a little bit from the content that CCP has put out lately, like with the Triglavian invasion and what else? There was a couple of things that you guys put out like lately, bigger like changes. Like, I mean, it's a big deal that like high sec systems suddenly turn low sec or null sec even, like almost, right? There's some weird rules involved.
Yeah, it definitely changes the. I think what you see, and as far as like community discussion goes, how that evolves. The community during wartime has a very short attention span. So, to put it simply, because they're always interested in the war, and with the war constantly giving them updates, any update that we put out has their attention for about a day, and then, you know, war things happen and it's gone. Like, it's just kind of eaten by the community. I mean, the fall of Nyarja was actually huge news, game changing. The fact that Triglavians successfully took Nyarja, and that fizzled out incredibly quick for how impactful that was. And I think that's just kind of the effect that the war has on discourse in the community.
How impactful it is. It's not gone away. It's still there.
It's still there. I know.
The new Eve Silk Road. The new Eve Silk Road. Just imagine just seeing more actual trading happening in Heck. Amazing.
I do all my production in a wormhole and then I truck it to a mine. Like
most wormholers. A lot of people might not know, but wormholers like to use Amar just for the reason of Amar space being so, like, has so many systems so well connected. That's way easier to reach Amar usually, just by chance, wormhole wise.
Yeah, statistically, you're much more likely to come out close to Amar. So Amar tends to be the central trade hub. So if you ever want to sell stuff to wormholers, armor ships or whatever, stock the Amar market, and I will probably buy them.
But there are some special rules in Jitter, right? For example, there are no belts. I mean, law says they got all mined out or whatever, right? There are no belts. There are some other rules. I don't know, like, right now.
There's no belts. It has its own node, and there are no citadels that you can have in Jitter. But there's also none of those in Amar either.
Oh, so in Amar it's the same rules? Or is it only no citadels, and does it have still belts and stuff? So it's like a light version of it.
I'm sure somebody in chat knows, but I do not on the belts. But I know there's no citadels.
But so what happens if the trading now shifts to, let's say, Heck? Heck doesn't have those rules, does it? It's not big enough as a trade hub. So what if Heck just suddenly blows up, but someone has a keep there? Oh, I don't need 40s are probably only, but
I mean, if we have to adjust server capacity, and I feel like there would be enough lead up. If it blows up within a day, that would be crazy, but it would also only take us a day to reinforce it. So it wouldn't be the end of the world.
But you would have to take down those citadels, though.
That's an interesting question. I mean, maybe the Heck authorities would put out a, this is your eviction notice. Get the heck out.
Oh no!
Sorry, that was terrible.
Oh no!
Yep, she just did.
Convict, you're officially my favorite community member. Everyone else sucks. Just for that god awful pun.
What do you guys think
Can't help them.
is the biggest win or the biggest success? Yeah, like recently with like the new content and so on. Like, is it filaments? Like in my book, it's filaments, I think, but.
I mean, the concept of filaments and how we've implemented and used them to basically just create new features has been really great, I think. The Yeet filaments, as they're called by the community, I think are just really great as a whole, just to make it easier and faster to get into potential content, because we have what is referred to as an aging player base, because the average age, I believe, of an EVE player is 35. People who have full-time jobs, people who have families, etc. So you want to reduce the time it takes to get into content, because EVE requires a significant time commitment, as is already. So the Yeet filaments was like a really, really great, in my opinion personally, a really great addition to the game. Using the Proving Ground filaments on top of that, my team, so of course I'm going to hype it up. It's actually been pretty great. There was, especially in the first one. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, because it removes your need to like spend half an hour potentially looking for a fight. You just get in it. Well, I mean, obviously on our more actual active Proving Ground events, on some of them the wait time has been longer than that. But especially the first one. The first one was the most interesting to us, simply because the meta evolved hourly. Like, and then it started including the market. Like, within, I believe, 3 hours, every Caracal and Jita was bought out, and then people started reselling them at 3 times the price. Then it became the whole like fuck Caracals movement and moved on to stabbers. This was hour 5. And the fact how quickly people reacted and evolved with it was super interesting to see, and how quickly the market came into play, and how quickly the market, I guess, market PvPers, or like, I don't actually know what to properly refer to them, the market people, right? How quickly the market people started reacting to it was also super, super cool. We're still sort of kind of ironing out. We're both trying to add enough variability for the format, as well as seeing what kind of formats get the most people. So, for example, the 5v5 Corvettes recently was one of the other tests, which is we literally went 0 actual requirements for ISK, 0 requirements for skills. You just need 4 people with you. And that was apparently a significant challenge. So we now know that requiring 5 people per team is a difficulty that we probably shouldn't bring back, but we might. Again, it's just like sometimes you just want to bring in some sort of like change up that might be interesting. So I think those have been good.
But wait a second. So is it only the requirements of needing 4 people, or might there be other reasons for why the 5v5 Corvettes were not as popular? Is it maybe also because kills on noob ships don't really count? You don't get a kill mark, you don't get, like on Z-Kill it doesn't count, I believe, or it counts maybe for 1 point. Maybe it's just like you're not killing something significant enough to get that satisfaction out of it, right? So I don't think the 5 people limit isn't all that hard. Probably it's probably fairly easy nowadays. But then also, have you guys ever thought about like teaming people up randomly? Because that's something I suggested like ages ago, actually, for new players. That would be really nice if you have a 2v2 tournament or 2v2 filament, and then you can queue alone though, and then you get a random guy, and then you can talk to that random guy, right? Because in the in the filaments itself, you can't like local chat and stuff, but you could talk to your guy, right? And say like, okay, let's go for this guy and so on. And then this new guy who just joined, and he's like, let's say he's in a destroyer 2v2 or so, he makes that first social contact and learns some PvP too, which is, I think, the two most important aspect of EVE. It's like the social part, and then it's hardcore PvP, right? No matter what other people say, maybe some Isaac might not disagrees, but I mean, that's where, like, what the essence of EVE, right?
I mean, I agree there, but introducing more intricate matchmaking is a significant endeavor in terms of just work hours. just time that we didn't have after actually implementing all the features as a whole. Like the base feature took quite a while. We're trying to introduce more changes and more improvements to it, but introducing a more intricate or more in-depth matchmaking system, especially if you wanted to drop in something like MMR, that is a Herculean endeavor that probably won't get time for, especially considering as a live team, we're expected to pump things out relatively rapidly. So like our next thing should be coming out next at the end of middle of next month, something like that. Like we have on average 2 months. I'd probably say 2 months, maybe a bit longer than 2 months is like the longest time we would probably have to work on something. Like as a whole, Proving Grounds as a feature was the biggest thing we did. Everything else we did was largely we focus on like events, so that's like dungeon events. We have like daily login challenges, we have daily login rewards, stuff like that. Like we work on a bunch of that. So getting the time to do something as complex as a proper matchmaking, because obviously you also do not want to half-ass it. A half-ass matchmaking is significantly worse than no matchmaking.
That's for sure. Yeah.
So it would require like a serious time commitment. So I don't think we would have the ability for that, at least with our current roadmap.
Yeah. So, and then you mentioned, sorry, I think I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with this? What did you just say?
Matchmaking, complex, limited amount of time for work on our features. Proving Grounds was the biggest thing we did as a team. We work on events. I think that basically covers everything I said.
Yeah, no, I lost my thought. But I mean, in general, I think. Oh no, I got it. So one of the main concerns people always had was that it would drag people out of the real Eve, right? If you want to call it real, if you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Out of the rest of the universe, which is I don't think that it actually happened, right? Like, do you guys have like statistics on that? Like, do maybe a few people that now do like Proving Grounds, do they not roam as much anymore? Or maybe they just do that on top of what they are doing anyway?
As a whole, we actually didn't see the first event, the first kind of like day or two when there was a large amount of novelty to the feature. We saw a little bit of a drop. But as a whole, roaming in null and low has not actually reduced or decreased because people either do it alongside or they just don't look at the Proving Grounds as much because, frankly, they're two actually separate play styles, or like not play styles per se, but actually, I guess, parts of the game. Because if you enjoy something like the hunt and like trying to pick your engagement carefully, trying to get like the best positioning in order to give yourself an advantage, that's different than just being like, I just want to fight. I just want to jump in there and I want to shoot some shit. And win or lose, like, yeah, like there's two different things, kind of like, I guess, thought or like mindsets going into each one of them. And the fact that we introduce another feature into the game does not mean it will kill others, because everyone is different. It doesn't mean that people be like, oh, I'm just going to abandon all other PvP in favor of only this.
Yeah, and I think like I can tell from like a fleet participation like point of view, whenever I ping, like it's not like my corp suddenly says like, oh no, we're running 2v2s or like something like this, right? That's very rare. Well, at the very beginning, I can totally see that. But at the same time, like nowadays, like I don't think anyone would miss out like a real fleet or like a real roam for it. So I see it as an addition. So like the main concern, I think I'm not concerned about that anymore. I think most people aren't at this point.
I think especially with the limited amount of time you can spend on a single filament, it means that, for example, if you are just waiting for a form up, right, that could take an hour. You could run like 1-2 Proving Ground filaments. Just jump out like while you're waiting, while nothing is happening. It's very short content, and because it's still there by the time the fleet finishes, you could always just jump back into it again. It's again one of those things where you kind of see it sometimes. People, specifically like very vocal people, be like, "Oh, CCP are introducing X, that's gonna kill Y," even though X and Y have similarities, they are not the same thing, and they're actually adding X on top of Y. It's just an addition. It doesn't detract from Y.
Yeah.
But it's very common to be like, oh, they've added something, and now that's going to kill another thing. If it's a new feature, we're not killing anything. We're just adding. We're giving more variety, and as a whole, from a personal standpoint, I always felt that more variety is always better. If you have more choices, it means there's more to interest you in the game. If you get bored with another thing,
that 1 hour form up you mentioned is painful. But I've been there.
I don't think I've ever had a 1 hour form up in it before.
And a what? A 1 hour form up?
1 hour.
Brave can has some pretty long form up times sometimes. Come on, guys, we got a timer in 2 hours. I know we'll get enough people by then.
Yeah, we only
Maybe
form
slightly
long.
better these days, but
Yeah, we only form long if like we're waiting for someone to make a move, right? So we're formed and then we're waiting for like certain things to happen, right? So you have to be ready, right? But in general, I think like 15 minutes is like, it's a good thing to aim for. It doesn't always work. Sometimes form-ups take it. Well, it depends on the config too, right? Things get complicated.
And then sit on the Titan for an hour.
Yeah, it happens, right?
It does happen.
Eve is the most boring, most exciting game out there. Right?
Sometimes. I mean, we wouldn't sit on that Titan for an hour if it wasn't worth it to us. So.
That is correct.
My favorite is when you sit in a Titan for an hour and they're like, it didn't escalate. We didn't do anything. Well, I guess just going back. Fuck.
Yeah. That's when you like walk up and you're like,
yeah.
You're kind of telling yourself that, oh, they knew our force was like ready to jump in. Clearly, I was still contributing simply by being ready. And it's like that sort of like little motivational speech to like get over the.
You prevented bad things from happening just by like show of force. Yeah.
The worst is when you're like, I just want to get in there and I just want to shoot shit, and then you're like, yeah, okay, our fleet arrived. We are itching to get we have at least two extra fleets ready for escalation and some like fancy tactics in case they do bring big shit. And then you kill like 7 ships and the others are like, that was enough. See ya. Just bye. And you're like,
op success.
The op success, but I mean, come on, man, what is this?
That's when your FC starts yelling at your dictors.
Yeah, the disengageability, that's why mutants and hacks in general is one of the big factors why they're so popular right now, right? So you
yeah, because you don't sacrifice the whole fleet when you lose a fight.
Yeah, unless you fly like AV zealots like we did at the beginning of the war, and you get your teeth kicked in, and you're like, maybe not zealots,
That was one of my favorite ships too. It's too bad. I'd love to see zealots.
We're always trying to do something different, right? And I think it's not necessarily just to be like, I don't know, just to be the cool kids or whatever, but it's for ourselves, right? To keep ourselves entertained, to keep the guys a little bit more engaged. Like we always try to, bring something else out. We gave it a shot. Didn't work.
Macarials, man. Macarials is where it's at. They're just so good. They have
such
good refitability. They've just got such good refitability. It's so easy to be like, oh, they brought in X, quickly refit your resists and put this thing. You're like, okay, and now you completely changed your actual engagement profile. You didn't even leave the field. It's amazing.
Yeah, and then you get swamped by fighters and completely shit on. It's great.
I mean, what else can you do in that situation then?
And then it gets expensive quickly, right? I think that's actually in this war. It's kind of interesting, the whole industrial side of things, because people actually like a lot of the ship type decisions are made around like, okay, can we actually fly this like long term? Like, or if we lose like a full fleet of these, are we gonna run out? Do we like get new ones and so on? I've never paid too much attention to it, but like in this war, it's like on a scale that like everyone has to think about that, right? Can we sustain like this?
It's always a topic of conversation, especially for those new player corporations, because what you have to take into account is that the average ISK per member in some of those, like maybe larger but newer corporations, is a lot lower. So for corporations like Brave, a huge driving force behind some of the doctrines is if we can't offer full SRP, and you also have SP to take into account, but sometimes, we were for a very long place, we couldn't offer full SRP. We just didn't have the wallet for it. And that was maybe a couple years back. So what can we fly that won't just decimate and destroy our motivation for when 20% of our fleet after we whelp one can't replace their ship? And so it becomes a pretty big factor. Large SRP wallets, of course, change this a little bit, but then you still have to fight the SP issue.
Yeah. I think we could probably afford flying like Macariad and so on, but like you run out of those holes quick, and then the prices go up quick too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? What's a good example for that is actually Tempest fleet issues. Like everyone kind of knows Tempest fleet issues are actually quite solid. Like they were actually the more tanky version of a Macarial usually, but like nobody used them because like there's no supply of them whatsoever. So I was always a little bit of a shame. I think actually GOTG back in the day flew them. And
this is why you should support your local Minmatar militia to get more TFIs out into the markets of Heck and Rens, and then you go and get them there.
Yeah.
I'd love to see more TFIs out there, so yes, go fly Minmatar militia.
Yeah, people complain about the Heck meta. Like, come on, make those TFIs super cheap, and everyone's gonna fly TFIs, for example.
Honestly, the Minmatar militia, and especially the Minmatar peers, are some of the most dedicated people I've seen. There has been, I believe until very recently, there has been not a single, well, now obviously a single Minmatar system has fallen to the Triglavians. Before that, every single time there was an invasion, there was a massive, like, concerted push by the Minmatar role players to just get them out. It's honestly really impressive, especially considering how the Triglavian players are really heavy onto it. So show them your support. Those boys are really trying.
No,
I might not have showed them a lot of support in the past because I had an alt in the Amar militia, so I showed them a lot of lasers.
I actually started my PvP,
right.
my PvP career in Minmatar Faction Warfare. Like when I first got introduced to the game, I instantly joined, and like complete chaos. Like those were the days. I'm telling you guys, those were the days. Someone just fucking put up a fleet and say like, "Hey, this and this range," and they just like 100 dudes just join and just like random ships like armor tank, shield tanked, whatever, probably hull tanked or not tanked at all. Like as long as they could reach 100 km, they were just part of the fleet, and then everyone just moved out and looked for frags. And usually, like, it went surprisingly well, to be honest.
Yeah, or when everybody would like come together for like a serious push of a system, trying to like get that iHub. It's like, and you have at the end of like a thing, it's like everybody stops by. And it's like, all right, we need you to donate for the cause. It was a very cool thing.
You know what? I don't even remember that. I think at that time I was so poor, like I barely could fly my little crow, and you know what? My first thing, people are gonna hate me for this, but that's all right. The first thing I really skilled into was a Falcon. It was so OP at the time, right? Like 120 km, easy peasy, just decloak and decide who wins. Right? You can just decloak and say like, okay, these guys need to win. It was so strong. So I skilled into that to always be that little guy, just like decloak and say, haha. Everyone hates that.
The worst. Yeah.
Just like a fight is happening, Pando on close. Did I just catch you guys having fun?
Exactly.
So I'll like you do now.
Well, sometimes. But nowadays I maybe focus more on having, like, getting fun for our guys rather than destroying the fun for the others, right? Sometimes, like I always say, sometimes you get content, sometimes you become content, right? As long as you undock, there's content to be had. What I don't like is people complaining that never undock, right? I've got an issue with that. But, you know, that's a... You know, whatever.
I mean,
on that one,
not undocking, and then just like laughing on Reddit about like how you're winning by making the enemy do stuff. I guess that's a play style. some people sort of get enjoyment about that. At a certain point, though, I mean, the hope is that they either undock or they lose their stuff, and so that's the sort of destruction that we definitely want to see. So,
hey, I think nowadays Discord or Reddit PvP is legit, right? It happens. Like it's part of the war.
Always the third battlefield.
Yeah. And it gets nasty too. And that's where when people cross the line, the whole ban policy thing comes back, right? Like sometimes they cross the line. I mean, they're still human beings, so like we all are.
Yeah, and we'll try to treat them like human beings. I mean, we can't do a whole lot about Reddit posts usually, unless it's like showing serious in-game infractions, that sort of thing. But yeah.
Yeah,
Reddit can be quite a battleground sometimes. At the same time, it's hugely fun to watch. And obviously, I spend a lot of time there doing like community sentiment reporting and that sort of thing. But also at the same time, like I love reading Reddit, even as terrible as it can be. I'm reading our forums all day, which are, after today's blog post, there's a whole lot of not so happy feedback, which is totally fine. So I get to read through all of that. I go to Reddit, I read through all of that. I go to Twitter, I read through all the tweet fleet comments. So I'm just kind of going through everything.
You know what? I think that's... Yeah, well, it can get exhausting for sure. Like if you read all day, talk about stuff all day, like at some point it gets exhausting for sure. Like I know that for sure.
Yeah, there's a certain point where if I've been, just absolutely immersed in all of the different use social media, that I just need to disconnect in the evening. And so I'll pick up like Rainbow Six Siege or Tony Hawk Pro Skater or whatever I'm playing at the moment. Just kind of not pay attention to anything that crosses my phone because it's probably going to be like a fleet ping, and it's like I can't deal with Eve right now. But at the same time, like I'm super involved in all this stuff because I love it, and so every now and then, that fleet ping will come after I've just spent like 8 hours reading, forum comments and Reddit comments and that sort of thing, and then it's just like, okay, let's go, let's go dive into like the really fun part of Eve here as well, instead of just talking about it. And that can be really grounding, which is always good.
And you know what? I think Reddit, what people forget, like people help noobs out all the time, right? So they're always looking for new ways to get like noobs up to speed as fast as possible and stuff like this. But the Reddit side of things, maybe there's like something that people forget, right? Someone should tell noobs, don't read the comments, just read the post. Just read the post, look at the memes, be happy with it and move on, right? Don't read the comments, don't dive into it.
Click into any of them.
Yeah, don't click on it. Don't click on it, right? That's probably like the golden rule, like until like, I mean, maybe 5 years in, you have a thick enough skin where you can like dare to click on it, and then maybe you can survive it. But yeah, I think that's probably a good rule to have anyway on the Eve Reddit. Like just read the post and then move on.
That tends to be whenever I play, like I start a game that I'm really enjoying. At a certain point, I'm like, oh man, I'm really into this. I'd love to go see like what their Reddit is like or their other social media. But I stop myself first off, because it's like, if sometimes those communities can be like very unhappy about niche things that don't really affect me as a player yet, and all of that sort of stuff. And it's like, I want to get my own untainted opinion first as I progress through the game. And so I kind of have to force myself to like, don't look at it. Just back away.
Gotta be careful.
just dip your toe in it first. See what it's like, and if it's not good, just pull the toe right back out.
Yep. But yeah, and then you said like the changes that are coming now, but like the order distribution, right? That was like big like feedback and stuff like this, like the typical thing. Like if something impactful is there and it's not, like people don't think it's like, they're very vocal about it very quickly, right? But do you think there's still a chance, like with like not enough feedback? Like I'm not even saying if that like the order distribution thing is good or bad. Honestly, I haven't even formed my opinion 100% yet. But do you think it's possible that like changes, like significant changes to that would still be made just based on feedback? Or do you think at this point, when it's already announced, it's like too late, so it's going to be implemented like that and then maybe like iterated on?
It's a very complicated question, and the final decision wouldn't, of course, be at my level. So, like, my role in this sort of thing is to, read through a whole bunch of feedback, try to figure out what people are feeling, just on very base levels, what people are feeling, and as best they can articulate it, why they are feeling that way. And so when I know what people are feeling and why they are feeling, that gives us, some additional information. And then you want to look for the constructive comments that you can find that really dig into the issues of, especially those ones that give more insight into, like, the reason this affects me is because. And so these are the negatives, these are the positives. That sort of content can be really insightful. And it's really great stuff to share with the teams. So on the community team, we'll gather all of that sort of stuff. And a lot of people will just be outright angry, and that's fine. Those comments we probably won't get as much use out of, but it tells us how they're feeling on a very base level. And we kind of, we use like the volume of that in order to be like, all right, well, most people are not happy with this feature, but then we need to figure out why. And so we'll dig deeper until we truly understand that. And of course, we also have, it's not like we're trying to understand this purely from the comments, there's context as well. So, who are making these comments, can we get an idea about the groups that are particularly affected, all of that sort of stuff. And so we congregate all this information, we gather it all together, and then it's basically, we present it to the team and be like, this is the way that people are reacting, this is what they feel, this is why they feel it. And we don't personally, at this level, care whether they're right, because the perception of why they feel what they feel, like, it's not our call to make. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong for feeling a certain way about a thing. But I just want to understand exactly what that is. And so our job is to communicate that as clearly as we possibly can to management and the teams that are responsible. And then they can take that and they look at everything and they be like, they'll make those tougher judgment calls of, why are they feeling this way? Is it something that we can affect? Is this, I don't want to say, are their feelings like valid? Because the feelings are always valid. But there's kind of is the reaction that they're having, like, will what they're afraid of actually become reality? And they'll examine that. So if someone's afraid that, the recent mining changes are going to totally destroy industry, like they won't be able to build anything anymore, they'll look at that, like, is that going to be reality? It's hard to say. This is a very complicated topic, but it's kind of left up to the team at that point to make those judgment calls. So that was a very long-winded explanation to the question that I've at this point forgotten. So
I was just asking, like, if it's too late for feedback to get really, like, to change it before it really gets rolled out, like the feature itself, right?
I mean, I don't think it's ever fully too late, but I do think that actually, hilariously, person in chat called Unsung Cesspool, beautiful name. Although there is usually more just outright just negativity to like a big change like this on Reddit, there will usually be like one or two people who take the time to explain how it's going to affect them and why they perceive it negatively, and there'll be like an actually serious breakdown, and those are usually like the most helpful, and those are the ones that can actually like have the largest chance of seriously shifting the opinion of like the designers or whoever's in charge of a particular feature. So like just saying it bad, I hate, I quit doesn't help us understand what is the effect it would have on your playstyle, because you're not even describing what your playstyle is. You're simply saying, I don't like it and I'm out. That's not even really feedback. That's just like we would have seen in our statistics. If you want actual change, you want to bring forth an argument and argue for it. Like, that's how discourse happens. So if you have a legitimate argument, explain how it affects you, what you foresee happening with these changes, how what is like the positives, the negatives, and what you think would mitigate some of the issues you might be facing in the future. Something like that is valuable for everyone, really, and those things usually are, unlike Unsung Cesspool said, I love that name. Those things are genuinely usually pushed through, like upvoted on the subreddit. So those are really useful information. So like, don't, especially those kind of posts, like, we will see them. I'm not even part of the community team. I'm part of the community though, but I'm not part of the community team. But I will also see them because those are the things that are genuinely interesting to read through. Like, we will take time out of our day to be like, this was a really interesting breakdown. I'll get back to my other work now. I can't have a direct impact on it per se, but my opinion on it might be swayed by that. And if it sways enough opinions in the office, it can add in more voices towards that like change.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Like, and then I think a lot of people should put in more work when it comes to that. Like, break it down, if not only for you guys, like for themselves, right? They're bitter about it, about whatever, right? But maybe they don't need to, right? So they need to look into stuff first, form a proper opinion, and then, you know, put it out there. I feel like too, like solid feedback. Yeah, I can see you guys use that way better than you know, some random like Reddit comments.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, sorry.
To the original point, like, it's never too late to back out a change or something, or make a tweak. Like, sometimes a change needs to be tweaked, but at the same time, and for today especially, sometimes we have to monitor something. So, I mean, the community might be very vocal about something, but at the same time, we're looking for very specific effects in terms of metrics the community might not have access to. And so, whatever those happen to be, you know, we've set a bunch of internal benchmarks, and we're looking for, all right, so how exactly is this reacting? And then there's almost just like a branching path of a decision tree that they have planned out ahead of time. That's hard to articulate to the general public because it's not always something set in stone, which is, I think, what we saw in the earlier ecosystem stream. It can be really hard to articulate exactly, like, the fact that what you're looking at isn't a plan that's going to happen. It's a decision tree of things that might happen depending on how things play out, because, you know, we can't know everything either. And so if we see a certain metric, you're like, all right, so this is the point where we reintroduce more of, you know, this mineral in order to adjust this cost. And so it becomes kind of a game of monitoring things and maintaining stuff, and it's a lot harder to describe to the community instead of terms of just like, we made this change, deal with it, which would be a whole lot simpler.
Yeah. All right. I've got one thing on my list. Norman, he's one of my corp mates, one of my helping hands actually. He does a lot of stuff for Init. He said, like, your database guys promise more dev blocks. Like, he's a super hardcore nerd, all right? It's like
super hardcore nerd.
He digs that kind of stuff.
And dev blocks.
Yeah, database dev blocks, right? So, like, basically, I know you guys probably don't have an answer to this, so I'm just like telling you guys, tell your database guys, he's waiting for those dev blocks, all right?
Okay, I know that there is a tech dev blog in the works, so there's at least something along those lines coming out at some point. I don't know when it's going to come out in the pipeline, but there's something. So at least you have that to look forward to. And then I will chat with our database guy, because I've been talking to him about Thunderdome stuff, and see if we can broach the subject of a database dev blog. I'm sure he doesn't want to hear that right now. I'll save it for later next week. He's pretty busy.
There you go, Norman. You can be happy. Looking forward to that, I guess. All right, guys. I think we are almost pushing 1.5 hours. So I don't want to steal much more of you guys' time. Much appreciated that you guys came on. And I hope a lot of the questions were answered. If there's any more like really good questions, put them in chat. Like we might just be able to bring them up.
Unsung has another good one.
Oh, really? All right, then.
I could probably answer, I guess.
Go for it.
What's the question? Please?
Let's hold on. I'm going to read it out first
Okay.
for people just in case they don't watch the chat. It says, what process does the CCP team go through when making decisions on such large changes to the landscape of the game without first getting at least some feedback from the CSM before implementation or announcement? Why ignore such a resource when it's clearly available?
So this isn't going to be like 100% responses, since I am not obviously privy to everything that goes on in the other teams. But as a whole, so this is going to sound a bit weird, but we like the designers we have in teams such as like the eco teams and teams that work on balancing. It is literally their job to know and understand how to manipulate certain aspects of the game towards a change that we, like let's say as a company, desire. So for example, with the ore changes, that would be introducing more resource scarcity. Because if we introduce more resource scarcity, there's more things to fight over, and as a whole, that also means that every single like ship loss, for example, is more important. We're introducing back the idea behind it, as far as I'm aware, is to reintroduce back the connection you felt to like your losses, like that it shouldn't just be like a throwaway. Like you want there to be less big amazing things, so those big amazing things are once again big and amazing. Like seeing a Titan back in the day was a marvel. Now you're like, well, it's a Tuesday, right? Like nobody cares. But if you introduce a certain level of scarcity into the game, making a Titan is now like an actual logistical question. Like, would it be better for us to make this Titan or a bunch of other shit? Or at least that's the kind of, I'm kind of digressing. Like that's the general idea. So we have literally like people whose job it is to monitor and understand the current economics of the game and find a way to push it towards a goal that we desire. So they do their job. They create what they believe is the solution to the problem. And then at that point, once their envisioned solution is solid enough to either already implement or start implementing, it is then brought to the attention of the CSM, because before that is just nebulous bullshit. You can't really get solid feedback on something that isn't set in stone per se as an idea, because then everything is very shifty. You're like, oh, what about this? What about that? And you kind of don't really get the information you want out of it. Like what you want is, we have idea. This is the encapsulated full idea. What is your ideas about it? Like what kind of responses do you want to give us? Trying to get it there before that doesn't really give you any solid information to work off of, which is why, like, first you let the people whose job it is to understand what they're doing to do it, and then you go through feedback. At least that's, like, as I said, I can't answer it 100% because I don't know the intricacies of this particular issue and how the eco team worked, but that is how I understand the situation should work, at least.
There's an additional catch here that it's kind of unfortunate, because I would love to see the CSM involved a little bit earlier. But when it comes to ecosystem changes, especially something along the lines of this, if you just look at the price of like Noxium or Isogen today, they've like doubled or more after the announcement. The problem is that it is a very sensitive market issue. And so if we give them too much lead, it's basically, here's this information, now have trouble dealing with the market because you know that this is coming, but you also are like bound to not insider trade based on the heads up. And so that's not a great place to put them in. And it opens them up to some risk that we don't really want, on several levels. And so we can't always let them in immediately, because like as a player, like I basically have to think about knowing that this sort of thing is coming. Like I can't buy extra Isogen or Nox. Like I have to avoid this specifically. And I want to avoid having any leftovers, because I don't want it to look like, You know, if I'm doing a whole bunch of industry, like, is there a question about whether or not I'm like stockpiling a little to play the market later on? You know, all of that sort of stuff is stuff that has to be avoided, which unfortunately makes for later notification to CSM and this sort of thing. So
should maybe, I don't know, I'm just saying it, like, should maybe CCP trust the CSM a little bit more in that regard? Because, I mean, I've been in this weird position, right? So, not even being on the CSM.
yeah,
so, I can tell you guys that
it was sort of that similar situation that I think they're trying to avoid again, because by not having information there, like, there's no concern. So,
but I mean, we like in this case, it was not anyone leaking anything, so it was the other way, right? So I think it has shown, like, over time that those high level players and whoever makes it onto the CSM is like high level, right? They don't care all that much about ISK, right? They understand very well that ISK is like a tiny part of their power, right? And it's like ultimately it's a little bit of our power, right? So maybe CCP should trust those players a little bit more so they can actually make the right calls rather early, right? But that would be my point of view, at least. But I get it. It's a tricky situation. Like, when do you involve the CSM? Like, at what point in the development process do you start asking those specific questions, right? And
it's a weird judgment call to make. And so you're kind of playing with these two sides of it, and there's pros and cons to each. And it's I think that this one is kind of left up a bit more to the team. So perhaps we can bring them in a little bit earlier, get some more discussion going, but we shall see.
And I think maybe that's, unless we have like some solid question, Miranda, you've got an eye on chat, but maybe that's the perfect time to call it, because I think next week I might just have like a CSM episode and have like 2, maybe 3 CSM guys on. And then we might just talk about that. Maybe, there's some feedback there on exactly that matter. I guess we'll find out.
Okay, I look forward to it.
All right. Then, guys, thanks again. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
It was a great chat. Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming
on. And see you guys around. And thanks everyone for hanging out.
Yep. See you, folks.
Have a good one.